Good morning, Tom. How are you doing?
Morning, mate. Yeah, I'm very well. Very well.
Both of us back from holiday in April. That's why we've had a few weeks off recording, haven't we?
Yeah. Where were you again? Spain.
I was in Spain with the family, sitting on a beach and digging big holes.
Very good. Classic. I just got back from France and Spain, which was absolutely delightful. Amazing food and drink. And
What was your highlight?
well, you know what I love? Just sitting out by the fishing boats, sort of in a pretty rustic restaurant, having a really nice chilled bottle of white wine. We were in this place in Biarritz and had some amazing wine that was made locally. That's like they store it under the sea. I thought my French was not was got a bit awry because I was looking at it and it sort of said, "Yes, under the sea, vinified under the sea." And I asked the guy, and he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, they store it under the sea for like a few months or something."
What, just like in cases?
Oh yeah, like in the bottles, yeah. I don't know exactly how they do it, but anyway, like a really cool natural wine producer in the area, and it was a stunning bottle of wine. And yeah, just ate and drunk amazingly. Had some sardines on the grill, some oysters, and this amazing bottle of wine. It was like unfiltered, really hazy, but really clean and like mineral and a lovely bit of salinity to it. Which was yeah, right up my street. Sat out, listening to the waves lap against the boats. It was delightful. Yeah, and then obviously all the pinchos in the old town of San Sebastian, and finished off with a stunning tasting menu at this quite a new restaurant up on Montegeldo. But yeah, it was like a 10-course, amazing hospitality. Like the food was incredible, but it was just the whole experience. It was sort of I hadn't done a tasting menu for ages. That kind of Michelin star sort of experience. It was really, really good. It was nice and relaxed, fun, good stories behind stuff. The level of service was just impeccable. Really enjoyed it. Now I need to hit the gym.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much the bits around the food make a difference. You just said like telling stories. They share like a few little bits about a dish and like it changes your whole perception.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a family. This restaurant is called Itzuli. I think it means to return in Basque. And basically, the chef had been away doing other things, and he's sort of come back. It's a bit of his homecoming, and he's won a star, and he's like one of the new starred restaurants in obviously a pretty starry area, San Sebastian. And it was, yeah, so it's like a bit of a family affair. There's like multiple people of the same family, and so it's got this nice, like a nice sort of relaxed feel to it when you read the story behind it. And then one of the guys who was doing the wine pairing he got really excited about one wine in particular, and he said, "Oh, now we get really serious." And like he was talking about his family produced this wine. And so he's all, and he was, telling us all about it. And that was just genuine interest and passion and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I guess, rejuvenated me and made me think about how we can inject some of that into our own business and with our team and how you get people telling those stories
Do
and
you think you
stuff.
can? Like, do you think you can do it just through like, I don't know, good supplier stories and a bit more knowledge than the average, team member? Or do you think it is like you have to like be a family member and really care about the business you own?
Yeah, I think that you can definitely add bits in through good supplier contacts. I think some of our team are proud of the beer that they sell or the wine because they've tasted it. We had a supplier from an amazing Italian producer, Mastro Berardino, really iconic sort of eighth generation family winemaking. They're quite big now. They make brilliant wines. We sell a couple of their wines in our new business, and one of the owners of the business came over and popped in and met some of the team, and the impact that had was incredible. The guys are talking about it, they're buzzing, they're really interested in it, and now they have that link. They're not the winemakers, but they have a link to someone who is the man. And I think when you do like a meet the brewer or you take people to a distillery or sometimes it can be it's a good reminder for me that it's a hassle, right? It's a hassle as an owner operator. You got a million things going on. We've just launched this new business, and I'm struggling to get a grip of everything of the marketing and digital side. Operationally, it's all a bit wobbly at the moment, and and just get the rotors done, get the team in place, and in the middle of that, it is still really important that we take up our suppliers on that. Come and do a brewery tour, come and meet the team, because it's that little bit of interest that they can tell a story, as opposed to just here's a beer, taste it and get on with
Yeah,
it.
or especially for a new team, like here's some new beers that you weren't selling before that maybe you don't, you didn't like the change, or you didn't agree with the change, or you didn't get a say in the change, like, how do you get people to buy into what you're actually trying to do?
Yeah, for sure, and especially when you're trying to sell slightly high end stuff, you just the team just have to know their stuff. I mean, hand on heart, we as a team in our new business aren't quite there yet. We haven't layered in enough wine training. We did a flip of a site in a couple of days, painted it a bit. We're running so fast at this opening to try and get the tills ringing and everything working, and some cash flow, and and all the challenges of being a small business. That we're compromised on some of that time training and stuff. So we're behind the curve, and yeah, it does show, because the products that I hear the team talking about are the ones that we've done some, maybe more in depth or specific things, or that they already know. And you can stick a really nice wine list together, but it doesn't sell if they don't know, if people aren't actually talking about it, or really know what they're selling. So yeah, it's been a really interesting process, and obviously that little break was for me was bad timing. It was like week 2 of the new business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Great timing as well. Like, take a bit of time out.
so you've been working on the new pub for a fair while. We haven't really spoke about it much because, well, it's been a bit on again, off again for the
Yeah.
last few months.
Well,
Tell us a bit more about it.
yeah. Well, it was a deal that was, I guess, like lots of business owners probably have this, where you negotiate a deal and it just falls away, and then you walk away, and then you come back to it, and then it comes back on the table, and eventually you get to the right answer. But in terms of the numbers and the deal, but when you actually sort of exchange and complete almost simultaneously, which you did sort of over the Easter weekend, which obviously no one's working over that weekend apart from operators. Yeah, you then end up compressing everything, and you can have best laid plans, but once you reopen those doors, you're into that. It's a reminder of how strong the current is in the river of operations. And we dived in with both feet, and we immediately got dragged away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we're desperately trying to sort of climb out the bankside, and just take a breather, and figure out what we're doing next. And it's even just things with the menu, right? We rolled over a bit of supply chain because we were taking on a going concern. We rolled over a bit of supply chain from the previous operators, and then it laid in some of our existing supply chain. Just all the basics of getting the deliveries in on time, and finding the new making sure that they're delivering to the right venue, not the other venue. And inevitably that goes wrong, and so you're driving around in a car picking things up, you know, and all that sort of nonsense. Yeah, just getting the day-to-day slick takes time. It either costs you a load of money in a closure, um, or it takes time when you're up and running, and that will cost you down the line if you don't get it right quickly, because things won't be right. So yeah, it's sorry, go on.
I think we spoke about this when I came down to see the pub, well, a couple of weeks ago now. Are you thinking about this new site as like an extension of the Carlton? Are you thinking actually like it's a sort of like a different offer? Like, where do you sit in the idea of like pubs match their surroundings? Because obviously not right in the same area versus like
Yeah.
we know how to run this great pub in at the Carlton already. Like, we're going to do more of those.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is in it's geographically, it's so close to each other. It's like a 6-minute, 7-minute walk, really. But it is in it. You might as well be miles away. It's in a completely different sort of part of London, really, which is sounds mad what I just said, but it's deep residential versus kind of thoroughfare, edge of a park, and the two areas are so different. You've got it's quite extreme wealthy area. Not to say that everyone who patronises the pub is extremely wealthy, but there is an expectation of a premium experience in one site, and in the other, it's a much broader world of demographics, and people want something slightly different. It's pints after a footy match. We've got a big beer garden in one, and the other is essentially a one room dining room sort of pub. So yeah, we're seeing them as very different businesses, and I guess one of them as a food driven dining pub, whatever that means.
Yeah, yeah.
Gastro pub, dining pub. I mean, not people don't like these terms, and food pubs and whatever. but that is where the growth of that business and where the money in that business is. But we don't wanna neglect the pub and the drinking side of it either, because that's super important. So, yeah, we're just really trying to work out how to operate in that space and, you know, deliver the deliver the experience that you need on a dining side whilst maintaining a good sort of bustling pub trade and a premium pub trade. But it's not straightforward. So yeah, we're just kind of we're sort of finding our feet. But certainly Clifton is our new site. It's going to be trading in a sort of more premium sector end, like more orientated end of the market. And the Carlton is still pretty foodie. We do great food there, but it's a bit of something for everyone, and can get more. It can be big drinking events, party, World
Do you
Cup
think
kind of.
do you think it's one of the reasons that pubs, I guess, have so well, in general, they've endured for so long, right, is that they are entirely flexible. It's not quite the same as rolling out, you know, a branded casual dining concept.
Yeah, well, I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? Is you can fall between two stools on your offer, because you're trying to be a bit of a coffee shop and you're trying to be a bit of a restaurant, you're trying to be a bit of this, and you're never going to be quite as good as the dedicated sites versions of each of those things. I guess, especially in an extremely tough market like we're at the moment, the resilience can be that if people are going out once, they might want a bit of everything, and a pub can be a bit of everything. Rather than spend an extra 30, 40 quid going to a restaurant that people maybe, well, we went there and had an okay-ish experience, or we're not sure if we want to spend the money. They can nip to the pub and have a couple of pints, and then maybe they get some food because they think, oh well, we're hungry, we're here, we're having a good time, and maybe we'll get another couple of pints. And actually, they might end up spending the same, but it's a flexible experience, more relaxed, less pressure to spend. And I think particularly in the climate now, with people's discretionary spending is squeezed. Yeah, the flexibility of the pub, it equals resilience and equals opportunity, and then it's a benefit being able to do all those things rather than a negative. I mean, there's been some news. Obviously, lots of operators are really taking the sword to their estate and really pinpointing where the profit is. And I think, I saw something you posted recently about Franco Manca, I think, and the Fulham Shore, guys really, really sort of picking through their estate. And yeah, like the EBITDA on the top end sites just isn't there to cover the challenge in some of the tail now. And I think casual dining is more exposed than the pub world to that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I worked with a CEO once, and I couldn't I initially, when I started working with him, I didn't really get why he talked so much about property costs, and he used to talk about it a lot, like, he knew the rent in every single site, like, the terms, like, everything. I guess then, like, we worked together for a couple of years, and, like, now I guess what I've realized is it's the one cost line you can't really change.
Yeah, yeah,
Once it's fixed, once you've agreed to that rent and that term and, those other parts of that lease, like, if it turns out in a few years that you need to, rethink the service model or change your margins, technically, like, those things are all doable. You'll never change your property costs, and if it doesn't work, I guess, like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's just, like, it's really fixed, and I guess that's what people have now found is, you know, enough of the other things have been chipped away so that some of those things that seemed fine 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, like, property costs just don't work.
yeah. And there is no room for mitigation now, because supply chain inflation is almost locked in. If no one through the supply chain is um is absorbing anything now, because no one can. Costs are just flowing. An operator at the end of the chain, you're absorbing all your direct costs anyway, and then you're absorbing inflation through the supply chain. So you kind of get a double wave of
Yeah.
costs at the other end. And
And you can't pass it on to the customer in the same way as you used to.
then you can't. I mean, there's an article in, I think it's the Morning Advertiser, about £10 pint is here, but they
Yeah,
did
it's so
reference
funny.
like they
We
reference
ran
like
a we ran an
Claridge's
event
or
a couple of
something.
weeks ago, and, Tom Stanley, like, made a comment about the £10 pint coming, and literally within 2 weeks, there's a couple of places in London now with £10 and I think £11 Heinekens.
Yeah, but the places they do reference are like five-star hotels. You're like, well,
Yeah.
it was always that. You know, oh, there's a
I
bottle of
actually
bottle
paid
of
£9 for a bottle of beer in a quite a swanky bar recently, and I sort of thought fair dues, which I know is ridiculous, but, like, if you're in
yeah,
one of
oh,
those
yeah, yeah.
places, you just like, it's not actually that surprising.
Mate, I remember diving into a five-star hotel because I really desperately needed to fire off an email, and I was just it was just there, and I was like, "Okay, I know I'm gonna be able to sit down." And I ordered a coffee, and it was like I'm going back years, like 8 years ago or something, and it was like £5.90. I remember
Yeah,
thinking, "Oh god, what am I what stupid." And then you pay service on that as well. You
yeah,
like, I just paid
yeah, yeah.
£8 for a americano. I mean that world is that's always been like that, right? The interesting thing the article was talking about was that yeah, there's no room for manoeuvre anymore. There's £7.50, £8 pint. I mean that's more what I'm interested in is that standard pints are now 7.20,
Yeah.
7.50, £7, and that's not obviously guests don't necessarily understand, and you can't have this conversation with them over the bar really, because you sound like you're whinging and you're moaning. But guests don't understand that you might have, the property costs are X, or the energy costs are as a small independent operator, I don't have the negotiating power of, your Green Kings and your Whitbreads, whatever. Although interestingly, Whitbread seems to be pulling out of
Well, very
the
much
pub
pulling
game.
out of the casual dining pub or whatever you'd call it. I don't even know what you'd call it, but the Brewers Fairs, what is it, Flaming Grill? Is that their other one? No, sorry, Beefeater and
Yeah,
Brewers Fair, that's it,
Beefeater,
that's
Brewers
what.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, which I guess, I think what I like about these big pub companies is they make really big strategic decisions, and they actually, because I guess they have to, they talk about what they're doing and why. Like Stonegate, they make a strategy, and I guess their strategy now is that branded restaurants, which for them all sit in the lower to mid-market in terms of dining, they are just too squeezed to be profitable, and I guess they are positioning themselves away from that over the next few years.
Yeah, and potentially it's not good enough anymore. Like the market out there is better. So like the basic level of, provision of food and service and everything. And a lot of that I think is grab and go in QSR. So a lot of people think, well, we can go to this place, grab it, get out of there, and it's better and probably similar price or cheaper. So it's kind of that lower end of the casual dining market, like bleeding into the value sector, and their models are different. You're getting almost full service in the value bit. You're getting next to no service in the lower end of the casual dining QSR bit. The quality of the food is better, and so that's kind of what a section of guests just want that, and the brand looks cooler and it feels cooler, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting that, they are both selling off some of those, but they're also just converting them into rooms and a different, probably simpler food offering.
Yeah, I didn't read the article in loads of detail. I sort of skimmed it, and as I understand, their strategy is just moving towards rooms, right?
Yeah, I think so, because I think now a lot of those are connected to Premier Inns, and, you know, I guess Premier Inn has got its own integrated food offering a lot of the time, so, like, I guess you can sort of roll with something like that. It's probably like changing consumer habits, right? Like, a lot of those visits from our childhood to places like a Brewers Fair or a Beefeater, I remember going for, like, birthday meals at the Beefeater when I was 10 years old. Like, there just weren't that many places to go for a meal that wasn't a hotel or a pub. We spoke to Bruce about this before, like, there just wasn't such a thing really like casual dining, whereas now there's so many options.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's interesting, it's hard to make money in casual dining now. I don't know if you read, but, Pizza Express trialing a QSR format.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
Like, I guess going after the sort of, well, a bit of the, like, Franco Manca sort of market, but maybe the, like, yard sale pizza, high delivery, high collection, casual neighborhood pizzeria type vibe.
Yeah, and, yeah, yard sales just opened up in Queen's Park, just near me, and it's interesting because I guess they make the sites, like, look really attractive and stuff, but their collection and takeaway, it's not an
No,
eat-in
there's no eat-ins
scenario.
there.
No, I don't think so. And yeah, they seem to be busy. They seem to be. I think they did a really good launch event with a local restaurant and kind of partnered. But yeah, I mean that offer of just pure takeaway. Obviously that's where they've just that's where the profit is because they're really focused on that, and they've grown quite a lot actually. Yard sale without quite quietly just grow. They've got loads of locations now. Interesting that they're now expanding on that particular model. Pizza Express going into that model, and equally you've got Franco Manca getting out of a load of sites. And there's a site just up the road in on Kilburn High Road, and it was Kilburn High Road's pretty resistant to sort of gentrification or whatever you want to call it. And when Franco Manca went in to this, it's like a beautiful building, an old bank at one end of the high street. Everyone thought, okay, here we go. There's a bit of a that's a bit of a signifier. But they went years ago, and they've been like nothing else has gone around it. It's just chicken shops and phone shops and vape shops and all the madness of the high street, which I sort of love and hate in equal measure. And they've just announced that they're going out there. It's taken them a long time to work that out, and I imagine they were doing a load of takeaway because there was, apart from that, there wasn't really any other sort of nicer pizzerias. Lots of value end pizzeria, like kebab shop pizza kind of vibe. But yeah, just down the road, obviously Yard Sale obviously in the right mix
Yeah.
to,
But again, they probably, I don't know what they pay in Queen's Park, but like what's rented Queen's Park? 30, 40 grand a year?
and the rest maybe like those high street plots are, if you can get them, are pretty
Yeah.
sought
But
after. So
it's not 100 or something, which if you're buying a restaurant site that's 3,000 square foot, like
yeah,
the
yeah,
difference probably is that yard sale spent what, 250 and probably pay 40 or 50K a year rent, whereas the Franco Mancas probably cost triple that,
yeah,
and
potentially, yeah, yeah.
potentially the rent is, you know,
Yeah, and the labor, right?
exactly, and so you're probably doing the same sales, maybe slightly more in the Franco Manca, but you're making less money.
Yeah, for sure, and all the wastage and the cost of the consumables that go into, you know, running a thing. I mean, we're currently, trying to sort out a linen supply, and we just might, buy our own and launder our own because it's so much cheaper. But I mean, it's hard to justify the linen costs that were the previous business was paying. We looked at the contract and it's just I mean, absolutely killing your margins. Once you layered in all the rest of your consumables, you really got to get into that detail. I saw a little video from maybe it was the guys at Fallow or it was a decent, like, well-known high-end restaurant in town that was saying, yeah, we do all our own laundry and we do this and that and the other, and that is where the little chipping away at your margins at that end is hassle. It takes a bit of discipline and organization, but you almost have to do it if you want to create any sort of mitigation against some of these
Yeah.
inflationary costs coming
Well,
our way.
you start doing your own linen, you pay for, I don't know, someone to water your plants, you pay for, whatever it is, someone to write your A boards or whatever it might be, and suddenly you could be spending thousands of pounds a month, I reckon, these days.
Oh, for sure, and Ben and I, we had a little catch up, and we managed to sort of get a couple of hours of just like, let's just calm down and just stop running around and try and do a little bit of strategy. Where are we? What are we doing? What's the priorities for the next few weeks? And one of the things that we kind of discussed was like, right, who's going to do X, who's going to do Z? Do we want to do these things going forward? What's the point of having these, like, of doing multi-site business, owning your own business and being your all that stuff, if you can't, you either get paid or you have a lifestyle, right? And usually when you do it on your own, you kind of usually are more on the lifestyle side,
Yeah.
especially for a while, and you just have to take the hit when costs come your way. There's no mitigation. It's just right. It's just director's pay that gets hit. But you think, okay, well, we either take the holidays when we want and da 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 da. But now, well, look, we've just launched, so we're in a completely different phase. But now we're sort of thinking, right, well, I'll get up early and come and water the plants and do this, and I'll get in and do that, and you're sort of thinking, hang on a minute, yeah, once upon a time you could sort of layer in those costs and your business could be nice and organised. If you want to make any money these days, you've got to figure out how to make those small costs go away, or you do it yourself. It's really, really, really hard work. I know you had a sort of Q1 margin conference with Ops Club.
Yes.
How was that?
I mean, there wasn't loads of good news. Yeah, there's a good, well, just wrote up an article about it on the newsletter, but I think actually the feedback I've had from quite a few operators is sort of oddly comforting because I guess, like, it's quite interesting for people to hear from, people across different businesses and across multiple businesses that actually it's not them. Like, it's not just them that's finding it hard. It's not just them, I don't know, struggling with supplier costs or struggling to figure out why they're making less money, all this sort of stuff. I think actually it's easy in your own business to be like, "Oh, yeah, like, volume's down," or, "Sales are only slightly up and most of it's price," and you're like, "Oh, what are we doing wrong?" And actually, if you're still around, you're not doing anything wrong. You're actually winning. Like, there's myriad operators sadly no longer doing it because they did something wrong or got priced out or whatever it might be. And actually, if you're surviving, you're winning.
And I think that it can be quite energizing, even though it's quite a bleak sort of message. It can be quite energizing to listen to people who I guess we do it a lot, don't operators particularly in the industry, you can start left and right at each other and thinking, "That site is always immaculate, and how are they doing it?" And then next month they go out of business and you think, "All right, they weren't doing it." Or they couldn't make it work, but it's quite it's almost quite nice to sort of share the challenges, right? Like, and you realize, okay, even if on the outside, someone it looks to be doing it really, really well. They are running really hard and suffering all these same issues, and I guess we're all suffering together. There's some more headlines coming out. There was Emma McClarkin, I think her name is, the chief exec of the BBPA, was talking about pub closures and how costs are just getting out of control, and we're the most heavily taxed industry. And all of that is true. Nothing seems to be getting done, and politics is getting dominated by local elections and global politics. I guess the focus of pubs and stuff is, I'm amazed it's still in the headlines actually, which is good, but nothing seems to be getting done about it. I don't hold much hope for a VAT drop or anything like
No,
significant. And there's a bit of rates relief this year. It's transitional stuff. Again, that's just pushing everything back, kicking the can down the road to next year. It's going to be another cliff edge, and everyone's in a much, much, much more dangerous position because of the massive hikes. So yeah, it's going to keep these phases of closures are going to keep happening. But interestingly, when you talk to some people who are really optimistic and the businesses are doing well, they just moved the model. The models are just changing, and you can't look at what you did 10 years ago and just keep trying to do it better. I mean, I think some operators are really resilient. Maybe if they've got the right property deal, like you say, like the mechanics of the background are set well. But realistically, there's just some sites that just aren't going to work. I went for a sauna on Sunday. Yeah, went to an all day drum and bass rave on on Saturday, which was absolutely amazing. And it was at a pub in Lewisham called the Fox and Firkin. Wicked venue, massive, massive beer garden. They put on this whole thing, and it was multiple acts, and it was great, right? And the whole place was packed, and I think they probably would have had a really, really good trading day. That was a operator clearly, doing something a bit different, doing a mini festival. They had two different food trucks. They were going for it, but they've got the space, and that was a really brilliant thing. And then the next day, instead of going for a Sunday roast, me and my girlfriend both feeling a little bit delicate, but we went for a sauna at this new sauna in Kentish Town called Lolu. It's like one of these new companies doing Finnish style saunas. And it was great, and it was really busy. And I was sitting in the cold plunge, in the sort of 2-degree cold plunge. I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many of these people would have been at the pub otherwise. And it was great that it was so busy, but equally, that didn't exist a few years ago.
yeah, yeah. And I guess it's like you said about you've got to change your model. The world moves on, like customer behavior, public behavior. Like there will be a shift, Diageo, around how like the only growing spirit category is like the ready to drink category. There is a huge shift towards, low and no alcohol. Someone was telling me about um, a study released by, do you know Whoop, the like wearable band people,
Yeah.
and there's now they've got enough documented evidence to show that like if you wear a Whoop, like there is a documented reduction in your like average consumption of alcohol. I guess because you're more aware of it, and so like
Yeah, for sure.
the world is changing, and how does your model shift? Being, you know, just being a pub from 2000 is probably not gonna cut it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think you can have all that stuff and not be it's not black and white. You don't have to do one or the other. You know, I love going to an all day rave and then go to the sauna the next day. You can do both. There's a room for both, but there's probably there's not room for absolutely everything in that market. I think, the weaker operators and the weaker offers are just getting slowly pushed away.
The weaker offers, not operators. Do you know what I mean? Like just things that are no longer as relevant or are no longer as exciting or are no longer delivering something that enough people want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's always been the case. I mean, look, we did 2 recordings last week and had a really great conversation with both interviewees, which obviously they're coming out soon. But John in particular, I think it was great to get his take and his take on where the market is now and his optimism for the future. And he's someone who obviously with the King's Cross thing took such a long-term view of that opportunity, and that was really fascinating for me, and kind of his optimism around the market and around what's out there. His business does slightly different things to what we do, but yeah, I mean, that there he's obviously thriving, and I guess it feels like there's a lot of people that sit around and say, "Well, my thing isn't working now." But I mean, there are people who are nailing those things.
Oh, yeah, there's loads. We can name 5 other concepts that are all, like, in massive growth and doing really well, but I
Yeah,
guess they
and
found a niche that is forward-looking.
yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes being lucky, think the market's moved to where they are, and they wasn't necessarily a huge strategy, but and it's frustrating because I mean I think what me and Ben do is something that is in the crosshairs of the market. If we stand still, we'll suffer, and so we're constantly looking at ways we can do different things, and it's exhausting. And at some point, you think, where is it, where is this cost inflation going to end? We had a rent review conversation, which is a very frustrating kind of conversation where talking about the property setup is basically his saying, well, at some point I might want to sell, so I need to up the rent as high as I can to try and maximise the sort of yield value of the rent, so it makes it more attractive for the sale. And we were saying, well, yeah, we completely understand that, mate, from your side, but how's that relating to our business and the profitability and the
Well, and the value of it today, like, the value of the rent today.
yeah, I said to him, "Look, we're taking more money than ever, we're working harder than ever, and we're making less money than ever. And so our interest is in making sure this business is viable for the next 10 years, the next 15 years, for our team, for our community, for everything." And he's like, "Yeah, but, what if I wanna sell it?" Kind of got in this cyclical argument, and that is in a microcosm. That's kind of where, I guess, where the market is. Landlords are going, "Well, what about me? What about our profit? What about where we are?" And just looking at, you know, the yield values of properties 5, 10 years ago. But I think agents, property agents, everyone's got their part to play in it because they're trying to maximize prices all over the place. But they are rendering these properties unviable as standard hospitality businesses, and not because the actual rent number might be completely off the scale. It might not be. It's because it's sort of unlinked to the profitability of the business. And I think for me, that's a huge problem. It's going to be an increasing problem because a lot of this inflation stuff isn't going away. And if you can't get the mechanics of the property bit right as the CEO, then no one will do it. And I think businesses are increasingly realizing that before they do it, rather than being, you know, crazy optimistic hospitality people.
We've all sat in meetings where we've been, "Do we think that'll do 30K a week? Do we think it'll do 40? Yeah, it'll do 40." Like, "What's the break even? 25? Yeah, no worries. We'll be absolutely fine." And, like, actually,
Yeah, I've been in lots of conversations where I've gone, I can't see us doing that, and then we do it anyway. And then someone goes, yeah, 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 we can, yeah, yeah. We're doing 70 over there. Surely we can do 50 here. And you think that's not how it works. But
yeah, yeah. Bit of a somber note to end on, Tom, but both got places to go.
I should actually go and water the plants, and
Yeah,
um,
exactly,
and let's go
exactly.
sort out some linen napkins.
Right. See you later, Tom. Thank you
Happy
very
days.
much.
Catch you next week.
Ciao.
Ciao.